You know, the NFL is a long season. 16 games stretched out over 4 months. When you're an elite team with an elite quarterback, elite head coach, elite wide receiver, elite pass rusher, elite running back, hell, we might as well throw in elite punter, elite all over the fucking field. It's hard to get up for every game of the season. There will be a game during the season where things just seem to be off. Maybe you overlooked your opponent. We witnessed this firsthand Sunday afternoon. I thought about discussing this in the ugly segment because, to be perfectly honest with you, what I saw in New Orleans Sunday was absolutely atrocious. Worst game that I've seen from this Saints team during this 3-year run. Actually, this might be the worst game I've seen from New Orleans in the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era. The Saints were outcoached, outplayed in every facet of the game. This team looked completely unprepared for Atlanta. Maybe they were hungover from Sean Payton's engagement party Friday night. I don't fucking know. But what I do know was that performance was unacceptable. I don't want to hear the excuses. Oh, this was the Falcons' Super Bowl. Or the Saints needed this loss to come back down to earth. There's no such thing as a good fucking loss. I don't want to hear the excuse that the officiating was lopsided. I rarely defend NFL officials on this podcast. Yeah, they made a terrible call when Drew Brees drew the Falcons off sides on that 4th down early in the 3rd quarter. Called false start instead. However, the Saints were sloppy all day on both sides of the ball. There were so many penalties for hands in the face that I was hoping that the defense would just keep their hands in their fucking pockets. It was ridiculous. The defense couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. Every time they got a stop, they committed a penalty. Then J.T. Gray, some guy on special teams, decides in the 4th quarter that he's going to be a hero and turn this game around, tries to block a punt, and roughs the fucking punter instead. Real fucking smart. Appreciate your heroics. People are jumping all over the offensive line. I agree, they didn't have a great game. But a lot of the sacks were on Drew Brees. He knows better than to stand in the pocket for 4 to 5, 6 seconds without releasing the football. All day, it looked like he was apprehensive about making a decision where to go with the ball. Very, very un-Brees-like, the whole game. They made the Falcons' pass rush, one of the worst pass rushes in the league, look like the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. The question is, should we be concerned about the Saints at this point? Was this loss just a one-off, or were the Saints exposed against Atlanta? Are they not as elite as I've been telling you that they are all season? I'm not concerned about New Orleans. I'm really not. These types of games happen to the Saints every year. During the 2009 Super Bowl run, they were 13-0 and had Tony Romo and the Cowboys come into the Superdome. Saints were a heavy favorite. They looked absolutely terrible in that loss. Ended up losing the last 3 games of the season. Went on to win the Super Bowl. Same thing happened last year. New Orleans was on a roll. I believe they won 7 or 8 straight when they were heading into Dallas on that Thursday night game. Late November. They looked like shit in that loss. Really, they played the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season last year. They were awful. Ended up the number 1 seed anyway in the NFC Championship game. Should have went to the Super Bowl. So this happens. These types of games happen throughout the season. But I am really concerned about the Saints offensively. All season, this team has started slow. Whether it be Drew Brees in or Teddy Bridgewater, the Saints offense has started slow. We're used to seeing Drew Brees in this offense hit the ground running. They scored 3 points on the first drive of the game all season. And those 3 points came yesterday against the Falcons. Before that, they had scored 0. That has got to change. There are too many weapons on this offense for the team to start this slow. They're putting too much pressure on the defense. Look what happened yesterday. The defense had an off day. First time they've allowed over 300 yards in the past 5 weeks. But they got absolutely nothing from Drew Brees in the offense. The Saints even had a short field several times in that game. Deontay Harris set them up twice with good punt returns. New Orleans managed 3 points on those 2 drives. Unacceptable. I'm not going to pull an Aaron Rodgers and say that the Saints needed this loss. Sean Payton was preaching all week to this team. Do not underestimate the Falcons. Don't look at the 1-7 record. This is still a good football team. Obviously, that message fell on deaf ears in that locker room. Hopefully, this is a wake-up call. I hope so. I see some using the excuse that New Orleans has had a tough first half of the season where every week it seems like they're playing in these big nationally televised games. Opened up against the Texans, Seattle, Chicago, Dallas. So it's tough for the team to get up for a game against the lowly 1-7 Falcons. That's bullshit. I don't want to fucking hear that. This was a game against a division rival, a rivalry that dates back 40 years. The Saints' biggest rival in the NFL. You mean to tell me that this team can't get up for a game like that? That's a fucking problem. Bottom line, New Orleans thought that they could half-ass this week because their perception was Atlanta can't win. So we can be half prepared, half focused, and still win because we're just that damn good. Well, you're fucking not. Thankfully, Carolina lost, and the rest of the NFC South is just garbage. So the Saints are still in great shape to win the division. But unless the 49ers completely fall apart, this team can kiss that number 1 seed goodbye. That performance Sunday afternoon in front of a hot home crowd that was begging for something to cheer for was absolutely unacceptable out of the Saints. All right, overall, I thought it was a great weekend in the NFL. College, it sucked. I'm losing interest in college football with each passing week. The games are just god-awfully boring. But I'm actually going to open up the good segment, the good, the bad, and the ugly this week with college football. I've been saying on this podcast for the past 4 or 5 weeks that LSU would go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama by double digits. I was off by 5 points, but it may as well have been a double-digit result because LSU let Alabama score a late touchdown in garbage time. They were up 20 fucking points at halftime. It was a complete domination. As predicted, the Tigers went into Tuscaloosa, completely dominated an overrated Alabama team. It was a beautiful thing. There were about 100 people in the bar Saturday afternoon that I was watching the game at, and the silence was deafening. I haven't heard one redneck yell Roll Tide all weekend. I want to thank Ed Orgeron for that silence. To those of us with a brain, we saw this coming all year. I mean, this wasn't very hard to predict. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I mean, we could all see this coming. Bottom line is Alabama's not a great football team. The defense is young and inexperienced. I told you when they gave up 31 points to Ole Miss at home that the defense would be the downfall of this team. They couldn't do anything to stop LSU on Saturday. Bama fans on Twitter were complaining, saying that they lost this game because of the officiating. I'll admit, the officiating in that game was downright awful. It was bad. But that's not the reason that they lost. They lost because LSU's the better football team. LSU should be the number 1 team in the college playoff rankings. They should have been number 1 last week. But I'm sure it'll be Ohio State again, which is just absurd in my opinion. Also, I don't think Alabama has any business being in the college football playoffs this year. I don't care if they go on the road in 2 weeks and beat Auburn. It doesn't matter at this point. One quality win in a 12-game season should not qualify you for the playoffs. Penn State lost to a good Minnesota team on the road. I'd put them in over Alabama right now. They've beaten Michigan. Went on the road and beat a tough Iowa team. Next two games are against Indiana and Ohio State, both ranked in the top 25. Even if they split those two games, I'd put Penn State in over a one-loss Alabama team. All because they've played a tougher schedule. And I'm not just beating up on Alabama. Clemson, in my opinion, they don't belong in the playoffs either. Actually, Clemson's schedule is worse than Alabama's. They will end this season not playing one fucking team ranked in the top 25. And don't tell me that Texas A&M was ranked when they played them. Who fucking cares? The Aggies are trash. There are other teams, some undefeated, some with one loss, that have played tougher schedules. Honestly, none of these top teams play what I would call a difficult schedule. But at least some of them are playing 2 to 3 tough opponents on the road or at home and winning. Like I said, Clemson's schedules, it might be the worst in the country. I'm really sick of the NCAA as a whole right now. We're going to get to that in the ugly segment. What they did this past weekend, in my opinion, was unforgivable. But we'll get to that in a minute. Moving on with the good segment. I can't stress enough how big the Tennessee Titans win over Kansas City was on Sunday. Not only was it Tennessee's best win of the season, but it saved their season. They lose that game, very, very difficult for this team to climb back into playoff contention in the AFC. Ryan Tannehill, I thought he was phenomenal. His numbers are not going to jump out at you, but he had a great game. This dude has stepped in and single-handedly saved this season for the Titans and saving Mike Vrabel's job. Unlike Marcus Mariota, in high-pressure situations, Tannehill puts this team on his shoulders. He was excellent on that game-winning drive with under 2 minutes to go. Saved the drive with a long run, then threw a perfect bomb downfield for the game-winning touchdown. And then he literally ran through a Kansas City defender to get the 2-point conversion to put Tennessee up 3 points with about 15, 20 seconds to go. Those types of plays from your quarterback, where he is risking himself to win the game, those types of plays earn respect from the rest of the team. Ryan Tannehill has earned the respect of that locker room. I said before the season started, he would come in midway through and save the Titans season, and that's exactly what he's doing. I really like this Titans team. Kansas City, on the other hand, I think Andy Reid and the Chiefs are in trouble. Mahomes had a great game, but it's clear he's not 100%. Even with a fully healthy Patrick Mahomes, this team just doesn't have what it takes defensively. This defense is god-awful. Can't stop the run, can't stop the pass, can't stop shit. They don't force turnovers. This defense gives up 148 yards per game on the ground. 31st in the league. You cannot win that way. Opponents can grind this defense down. As great as Patrick Mahomes is, I don't think he can overcome this shitty of a defense. This defense is worse than they were last year. At this point, I don't know if Kansas City is even the best team in their division. John Gruden has the Raiders rolling right now. And the schedule to close this season isn't doing the Chiefs any favors. At Chargers, Oakland, at New England, at Chicago. Close out the year against the Chargers in what could be a huge game in terms of the playoffs, wild card or division. Sitting at 6-4 with the Raiders breathing down their necks. And don't discount the Chargers, who are only 2 games behind Kansas City. The Chiefs have no margin for error. With a defense that gives up 24 points a game, they're going to be heavily reliant on Patrick Mahomes, who is 1 hit away from being out another couple of games. If that happens again, season over for Kansas City. Since I consistently brag about things that I'm right about, like LSU beating Alabama or my preseason prediction of how things will play out in Tennessee with the Titans, it's only fair that I mention when I'm wrong about something. 5 or 6 weeks ago, maybe a little longer, when Kirk Cousins was struggling through the first few weeks of this season, I said that Kirk Cousins was the worst quarterback in the NFL. That can't be further from the truth. I was way, way off in that assessment. Overreaction on my part. Since that disaster of a game in Chicago, Kirk Cousins has been a top 3 quarterback in this league. 5 of the last 6 games, passer rating over 100. Completing about 73% of his passes. 15 touchdowns, 1 interception. Consequently, Minnesota's 5-1 over that stretch. Like most NFL teams, the Vikings are going to go as far as Kirk Cousins can take them. The big knock on Cousins throughout his career is he doesn't beat teams with winning records, and he doesn't win on the big stage, Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. Well, dude has stepped up, and he's put all that behind him. Blew out Philadelphia. Won on Thursday Night Football a couple of weeks ago. And had what might be his best win of this season Sunday night at Dallas. Minnesota's going to be a tough out if they make the playoffs. Sitting at 7-3, they're likely to be playing in January. Top 5 defense, top 10 offense. Good head coach in Mike Zimmer. 2 great wide receivers and an elite running back. This team is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. As long as Kirk Cousins doesn't revert back to the Cousins we're used to seeing, this team is going to be dangerous down the stretch. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, on the other hand, are a fucking disaster. I told you before the season started that this team was not making the playoffs. I don't care if Football Outsiders gives the Cowboys a 70% chance at this point to make the playoffs. They're fucking wrong. It's not happening. Philadelphia is winning the NFC East. I'll tell you why it's not going to happen. Because they have an incompetent head coach. Jason Garrett's days in Dallas are numbered. He has about 7 more weeks to hold this job. Sunday night, Dak Prescott looked like a $30 million quarterback for the first time all season. Dallas could not get a run game going. 50 yards on the ground. But Dak Prescott carried this team the entire game, and they were in that football game. So with under 2 minutes to play, Cowboys are trailing by a touchdown. The obvious thing to do in this situation would be to pass the ball. Your quarterback is on fire. The Vikings had no answer for Dak Prescott. What does Jason Garrett do? Consecutive running plays. And herein lies the problem. And why Garrett will be fired at the end of this season. This is not the 1990s. I told you before the season started, you stop Ezekiel Elliott, you stop the Cowboys offense. Well, they were the opposite of that Sunday night. Minnesota could not stop Dak Prescott. But this isn't the 1990s, when running the football was the backbone of a successful offense. In 2019, running the football is used to open up the passing game. That's what it's there for. You have an elite wide receiver in Amari Cooper. Good tight end in Jason Witten. A quarterback who has shredded the Vikings defense the entire game. And you make the call to run on consecutive plays late in the game. Because that is what you always have done. Jason Garrett fails to make adjustments. This isn't the first time this has happened. Where Garrett's stubborn insistence of running the football has cost his team a game. Happened against Green Bay. Dallas fell behind 24-0. Happened against the Jets. Fell behind 21-3. Hell, it happened against the Giants when they trailed 12-3. Dallas ended up coming back and winning that game because the Giants are god-awful. When Dallas opened the season 3-0, the media was crowning them one of the best teams in the NFC. We said it right here on this podcast that Dallas was fool's gold. We said to wait until they started playing good or average teams and watch the Cowboys crumble. They're 2-4 over the last 6 games. Check out this remaining schedule in Dallas. Check out this schedule And you tell me how the Dallas Cowboys are going to make the playoffs this year. At Detroit, at New England, Buffalo, at Chicago, Rams, at Philly. Close it out against the Redskins. The way I see it, Dallas ends this season 8-8. 9-7 at best. Jerry Jones was going to fire Jason Garrett if they were bounced from the playoffs early. What the fuck do you think is going to happen if they don't even make the playoffs? It was a nice run, Jason Garrett, but your days as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys are numbered. Enjoy it while it lasts. All right, let's move on to the bad segment. Only one thing in the bad segment this week. When I did my NFL midseason review, I told you that I was really concerned about the Buffalo Bills making the playoffs. Their game against Cleveland on Sunday was a perfect example of why I'm concerned about Buffalo. The Bills' defense had a bad game. They were shredded by Nick Chubb. Baker Mayfield even had his moments. Yet, the Buffalo defense held Cleveland to 19 points and gave the offense plenty of opportunities to step up and help win that game. Time after time after time, Josh Allen and this offense failed. Besides one good drive that resulted in a touchdown, this offense failed to move the ball the majority of that game. Josh Allen fumbled for the 11th time this year. 1 minute he's looking good, completing, 15 to 20 yard passes. The next he's overthrowing wide open receivers. I'm not blaming Buffalo kicker Stephen Hauschka for this loss. He missed 2 field goals. It was the difference of the game. Missed a 53-yarder late that would have sent the game into overtime. Not blaming him for this loss. It should have never come to that. Buffalo has been doing this all year. Doing just enough offensively to get by. Leaning on this defense. And for the third time this season, it burned their ass. If the Bills' defense doesn't play a near-perfect game, this team loses. The problem is this defense is susceptible against the run. There's a real concern surrounding Josh Allen. Whether or not he can be a franchise quarterback for this team. He struggles reading defenses. He doesn't see the whole field. Wildly inaccurate. Good God, is he fucking inaccurate. In the Bills' 3 losses, he's completing 49% of his passes. Buffalo's the worst 6-3 team in the NFL. It's do or die for Josh Allen at this point. 9 games into the season, and he hasn't had one good game against a quality opponent. He's had 3 mediocre performances this season, all against bums. Giants, Dolphins, and Redskins. Bum, bum, bum. You aren't convincing anyone you're a franchise quarterback by being mediocre against those teams and playing like a fucking bum against everyone else. All right, let's get to the ugly from the past weekend. What the fuck is going on with the Los Angeles Rams offense? Another absolutely god-awful performance in a very winnable game against the Pittsburgh Steelers Sunday afternoon. Jared Goff in this Rams offense managed to score 3 points. 3 fucking points. The defense once again came to play. Scored 3 times as many points as the shitty offense did. The Rams offense had scored 0 points before kicking a field goal with about 14 seconds to go in the third quarter. I called Sean McVay an elite head coach when I released my NFL plays Saturday morning. I want to take that back. This guy's lost his fucking mind. His play calling in that game against Pittsburgh reeked of desperation. Reeked of a coach who's lost his magic and has no idea how to recapture it. Let me run down this sequence of plays for you and show how just absolutely brutal his play calling was. We're midway through the third quarter. Rams have the ball, 3rd and 2 on their own 30. All of a sudden, I look up from my phone, and Blake Bortles is in the shotgun instead of Jared Goff. I'm thinking to myself, I know Jared Goff has been bad this year, but Blake Bortles a fucking bum. I mean, this guy can't hit a blind man in a boxing match. So on 3rd and 2, McVay's play call was some weird read option with Blake fucking Bortles that was so successful in fooling the Pittsburgh defense that it gained 1 yard. So then on 4th down, when 99.9% of coaches that want to keep their job would punt in this situation, McVay calls a fake punt, and his punter throws one of the ugliest passes that I've ever seen right to a Steelers defender. I call it a fake punt. It wasn't even a fucking fake punt. Punter Johnny Hecker was actually lined up in the shotgun. So Pittsburgh knew they weren't punting the ball. First, if you're going to go for it on 4th down, in your own territory, why are you doing so with your punter throwing the fucking football? Secondly, on 4th and 1, you got Todd Gurley. Why not just run him up the middle? Do anything other than what McVay decided to do. Being cute and creative like that is real great when you're winning and things are going well. When you're 5 and 4, it's downright insane. The Rams' offense is so bad right now, they've been 19 possessions without scoring a touchdown. 4 turnovers against Pittsburgh. They only lost by 5 points. Ever since acquiring Jalen Ramsey, this defense has been strong. The problem is, just like in Buffalo, they can't get shit out of this offense. Jared Goff is a disaster. Completing under 60% of his passes the past 5 games. He's lost all confidence. They can't run the ball effectively. Apparently, Sean McVay is losing confidence in Jared Goff as well. Defensive coordinators have caught up to Sean McVay's schemes, and he can't figure out what to do. This is where you separate elite coaches from your average coaches. Now you got to wonder if it was a mistake giving Jared Goff that monster contract this past offseason. This is what the franchise tag is for. Guys who you weren't sure about. As bad as Jerry Jones is at times being a general manager, he has played the Dak Prescott situation perfectly right. The Rams should have done the same thing with Jared Goff. Now you've committed big money to this guy over the next few years, and you're stuck with him. All right, I'm going to close out today talking about the NCAA. I am so sick of this greedy, corrupt organization. I really hope with this move to pay college athletes gaining momentum that someday soon the NCAA will no longer exist. In case you didn't know, over the weekend the NCAA ruled that James Wiseman, center for Memphis and projected number 1 pick in next year's NBA draft, was ineligible for this season. They're saying he's ineligible because 2 years ago, when he was a junior in high school, Penny Hardaway gave his family $11,500 to help with moving expenses to Nashville so James Wiseman could transfer to a high school where Penny Hardaway was coaching. Now, this is before Hardaway is the head coach at Memphis, and obviously before James Wiseman was attending Memphis. The NCAA is saying that Penny Hardaway is a booster for Memphis. So the donated money would be illegal according to their archaic rules. I fucking hate this. Now, was Hardaway looking out for himself here? Probably, yeah, a little bit. But who cares? He was helping this kid and his family out. My thing is, what business is it of the NCAA's, what they're doing? He wasn't in college. Hardaway wasn't coaching in college. What the fuck do they care that he donated some money to this family to move him? Memphis is fighting the NCAA over this and still allowing Wiseman to play. Good for them. More of these schools and coaches and players should fight this corrupt group of motherfuckers in the NCAA. College basketball is starving for star athletes right now. It is dying a slow and painful death. instead of doing whatever they can to encourage kids to play ball in college, the NCAA seems to be doing everything they can to keep them out. With the rise of the G League and potentially allowing players to enter right out of high school, other leagues popping up as feeder systems to the NBA, and the opportunity to make money playing basketball professionally overseas, I think we're about to see elite level basketball players forego college basketball altogether. And who can blame them? If you had the chance to be paid to play basketball for 1 year before entering the NBA, or you had the chance to play for free and make somebody else millions of dollars, which one are you going to choose? The case is tied up in court right now. Probably would be that way through the college basketball season. More than likely, Memphis will end up forfeiting whatever happens this season, but who fucking cares? I hate the fucking NCAA. This corrupt piece of shit has been taking advantage of kids for years, making billions upon billions of dollars off the sweat equity of teenagers and giving them nothing in return. And don't tell me and feed me that bullshit, oh, they're getting a free college education. If college weren't so fucking overpriced, then maybe some of these poor kids could afford to pay for it on their own. Giving a kid a $20,000, $40,000, $50,000 scholarship is a drop in the bucket compared to the millions of dollars they make for the schools in the NCAA. Punishing Penny Hardaway for helping out a family in need is just indefensible, in my opinion. It's been reported that James Wiseman didn't even know that Hardaway had assisted his mother in financing the move. If that's the case, the kid's innocent. Not to mention, all this happened before either Hardaway or Wiseman was even at Memphis. So I don't know why the fuck the NCAA is sticking their nose in this situation anyway. Eventually, they're going to reap what they sow. Like I said, college basketball is dying. It has been dying for the past 15 or 20 years. College baseball will never be popular. College football is still big, but if they keep churning out boring season after boring season like they have the past few years, I could see the ratings start to dwindle. Other college sports are money losers. Football and basketball are the only sports that make money in college. And the NCAA is doing its best to kill college basketball. A few years ago, they clamped down hard on the Tennessee basketball program because Bruce Pearl had some recruits over to his house for a fucking barbecue. If I were an NBA prospect, the last place I'm taking my talents is to college basketball. I rarely agree with LeVar Ball, but I thought it was smart to send his two younger kids overseas to play ball instead of college. Fuck the NCAA. Alright, that's all for today. I've ranted enough. Hit the like and subscribe button. Leave me a comment. If there's any news or stories you'd like me to go over, let me know in the comments section below or hit me up on Twitter at KC_BTL84. I'll be back Friday morning with news and my college football bets for Saturday. Had a good bounce back weekend this past Saturday in college. Went 2-1 with our college plays. Decent weekend for our NFL plays too. I'll see you guys Friday morning. Have a good week.